Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. So glad you guys could join us for those tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X. We're glad you all could be with us. Going to connect with our friends over on Instagram and then connect with our friends over on Amazon. I'm very excited about this next guest. We've had several conversations on Conversations Live, the radio show, which is making your first on camera appearance with us here on Amazon Live. And we're now live on Amazon Live for Cyrus Webb Presents. If you guys are new to us on the Amazon platform, welcome. Make sure you guys hit that follow button, either here in this corner or down below. You also will see the newest book, and she has written a lot, of our next guest. We're excited to welcome best-selling author Melissa De La Cruz to our broadcast today. Her newest book is called When Stars Align. You guys are going to love this book. We're going to talk to Melissa not only about her amazing journey as a storyteller, but also what it's been like for her to capture the attention of readers of all ages, and also what inspired the newest book as well. Melissa, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's so great to be back, Cyrus. Yay. Thank you.
But the pleasure is definitely all mine. I have always appreciated the time you've given us. And I want to first of all just say how exciting it's been for me as a reader to be able to follow your journey, to see your successes. Talk to us about this experience for you, Melissa. What it's been like for you to do what you love, but then, of course, to see the way that people literally around the world appreciate your craft.
I mean, it's a dream come true, and sometimes when things are frustrating, like they can be in a long career in the arts, you have to remind yourself, wait a minute, this is what you dreamed about. You wanted to write books, you wanted to tell stories. And I'm like, okay, I know.
And
It's a,
and I'm sorry. I was just going to say, and what's been so great for me, and you and I were talking about this right before we went on, Melissa, is that you are not one of those people who's been confined. And I was having a conversation with another creative earlier today. There will be people who will tell you to quote unquote to niche down, to find one thing, and to really dive deep. You have definitely not followed that model. You've been able to write in different pockets of the industry. Is that what keeps it fun for you at this point?
Yeah, I think I was allowed to do that because I, started in YA. So YA is kind of just an age range, but they let you write many different genres in it. So I wrote chick lit, I wrote, supernatural, I wrote fantasy, I wrote thriller, I wrote mysteries, but because they were all in the YA age range, they were all in one genre, but really I was taking my hand at lots of different genres. So when I was able to do adult books, I could say, well, I already wrote a thriller, I wrote one in YA. I already wrote, a supernatural story. I wrote one in YA. So I think people kind of got used to me, or at least got used to allowing me to be able to do lots of different things. So, and I'm just interested in lots of different things, and I'm interested in lots of different stories. Like I like writing for kids. I like writing for, that 8 to 12 age range. I have, a goofy sense of humor and I make myself laugh all the time. And then I like writing for teenagers and writing about first love and angst and all that adolescent feelings. And then I also like writing for adults and kind of tackling heavier more grown-up topics. So I'm just interested in a lot of things, and I just feel thankful that I'm allowed to tell stories in all these different genres.
Love that. I think that's an interesting segue to the new book, When Stars Align, because we're able to meet these individuals who knew each other when they were younger. And then, of course, now to be thrust in this world together. Talk to us about When Stars Align for you, Melissa. What was the kind of the seed for you that kind of started this journey for you?
A lot of my books are inspired now by my daughter, who is now 18. And about maybe a year or two ago, she said something which kind of stuck with me. She said, Paris Hilton is a queen, Mama. And I said, Paris Hilton, really? I mean, I had grown, I was in my 20s in the early 2000s, and that was not how we looked at Paris Hilton at all. Especially how the media portrayed Paris, Lindsay, and Brittany, who were kind of the three inspirations for the characters in the book. So one was my daughter saying Paris Hilton was a queen, which I thought was fascinating, that these young girls now looked up to Paris, whereas in the past, especially when she was on The Simple Life, she was kind of an object of ridicule. And now we see how, we know a lot more about her story, what she went through, and, and the fact that that is just a persona that she used for profit. She profited from the perception that she was not very smart, when in truth, she's actually very smart and savvy
Mm-hmm.
person. And so I wanted to write about that, what it's like to have been seen a certain way when you were young, especially that photograph of Paris, Brittany, and Lindsay on the car together,
Mm-hmm.
was one of the more iconic photographs from that age. And I think I just saw it on Instagram. Somebody posted that photo and wrote, "Our founding mothers,"
Wow.
So I
Wow.
thought, oh my God, that's so true. And especially now knowing how terrible the media was and the culture was to them, to
Mm-hmm.
these very young and vulnerable, starlets. So I
Yeah.
want to talk about that, what it's like to be that in your 20s and then in your 40s, kind of come to, full circle.
And that's what I thought was so, as a guy reading this book, Melissa, and I only use that caveat because I think there's so much that men and women can get out of When Stars Align, because of course some of the men characters in there too, we can learn what not to do and how not to be be too. But what I love about two of the themes that definitely stood out, and it is an entertaining read, so I want our audience to know that it is entertaining. But as far as the things I thought about was, for one, how we put value on individuals, what we, how we kind of objectify, even though we don't like to use that word, that's really what we're doing, individuals, and put certain expectations on them, but also how we see ourselves. What was it like for you to play with those two different things, Melissa, in this book, of how the world saw these individuals, right? And also how they view themselves and value themselves.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, do you let the world define you for what you're worth, or do you find, your own self-truth and self-worth on your own, away from the spotlight, And and I think that was something, especially when you're young, in Hollywood, we've moved to Los Angeles, so we have friends whose children are actors, and just also knowing some young actors, seeing how, that can really warp your reality, because when you're a star and you're so young, but people are treating you like an adult, and people, whose incomes depend on you, but you're a child,
Right.
and part of me really doesn't think that that is good at all for children to
Yeah.
be, to be exposed to something like that so young. So I really commend, child stars who grow up whole from that experience. I
Right.
think it's very corrupting.
Yeah. And we don't hear a lot of them. No, unfortunately, we don't hear a lot of those stories. Is the character pronounced? Is her name pronounced Jermaine? Is that how you say
Yes,
it? Okay.
Jermaine.
Let's talk about Jermaine first. Jermaine definitely is a standout, and there's one scene in particular, and I'm going to talk around it,
Hmm.
Melissa, but our audience will know when they get to that part of the book, and that is about when everything is stripped away. I'll put it that way, and you know what I'm talking about. That, thinking about what their parents said to them about
Mm,
appreciating things,
mm.
and then realizing that, for themselves. What was that like for you? Because I thought when I got to that part of the book, and to kind of think about how Jermaine kind of were able to see the journey, the idea of how, again, it goes to what I was mentioning earlier about how you define yourself and how you take things for granted. I think maybe we'll say it that way. And then to have things taken away and then realize who are you after that. What was it like for you in characters like Jermaine to be able to showcase that?
I think my family immigrated to the United States when I was 13
Hmm.
from the Philippines. And I think a lot of my own personal experience with that, comes out in my writing in many different ways. I don't write about immigration per se, but, that feeling of like losing everything and having
Yeah.
taken, your old life for granted until suddenly you don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's something that I go to again and again in my work. You never know what you have until it's gone,
Yeah.
and I think everybody feels that at some point. I think life, as much as we want to shield our children from life's pain and disappointment, it's there. It's something is going to happen to you where you will feel that way, and you will feel like you have nothing but yourself to depend on. And really, it's in those moments when you kind of realize what, you know, who you are, and the strength that you have,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah, such a great thing, and such a great mind. And that what you just said, Melissa, is another thing that I appreciate you as a storyteller. Whether you're giving us witches or anything else, is that you're able to bring this human touch to everything, right? Where no matter how fanciful the world may be, people can still see themselves in it. Is that just part of what you just said? Is that part of just what happens for you when you're telling stories, that you just, a part of that humanity just finds itself in there?
Yeah, I think that's what makes them interesting. I think I like all the fun. I like magic, and I also like fame. I like glitz and glamour. But at the heart of it, you're telling stories about people. And I think making people relatable in these kind of fantastical worlds, whether it's a fantasy kingdom or it's Hollywood, that's the heart of what makes things interesting. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
I think well, it's so true. I want to say, for those, I see you guys coming in over there on YouTube and Facebook, hello to you. For those who are just tuning in, welcome. You're watching Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live, but we're simulcasting on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and on Instagram. I have the privilege of speaking with New York Times bestselling author Melissa De La Cruz today. She's talking about her brand new book, When Stars Align. It's out now. You guys can get it either in print or the Kindle edition. Again, we have them highlighted there in the carousel over on Amazon. You guys can see the Kindle edition is only $5.99 right now for this book. You have had your books praised by readers like myself, Melissa, but also your colleagues, but also those in the entertainment industry too. What is that also part of what you hoped would happen in your career? Is that kind of the icing on the cake of doing what you love as a published writer?
Yeah, I think it's always nice when people understand your books and respond to them. I think now, I've been doing this for almost 30 years now. I'm not going to age myself too much, 25, let's say. And it's still kind of wonderful when somebody really understands, your sense of humor or the story you're telling. So these days I don't really pay attention to, people who don't get it, say, oh, what did I just read? Or, oh, this is a waste of time. And I'm like, well, sorry I didn't entertain you. Next.
Right, right, right. Hello to you on IG. Hey, Herschel, hello to you. I think it's pronounced Eliza. Hello to you as well. I want to talk about Miranda for a moment. Miranda, to me, is probably, in my opinion, when I was reading it, Melissa, was probably the most layered character in the book. So much, especially when it comes to dealing with, I'll call it trauma. Maybe that's not the best word, but trauma, events of the past, how they rise up and show themselves. What was the most for you? Which one do you think was the most complicated character that you created in this story?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Miranda has a lot to deal with, So yeah, she was a little bit more complicated and a little bit more layered to work on, just what happens with her mother and what happens with her boyfriends, So she's kind of the most no, maybe I don't want to say damaged, but maybe the most vulnerable,
Right.
but also the one who we're rooting for the most to,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
find happiness in the end, So in a
Right.
way, she's also my favorite character. I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite. I was
Yeah.
I a lot of fondness for all three of
Mhm.
the characters that I wrote about.
Yeah. I think that's why the title of this book is so interesting as you get throughout the story, Melissa, because I think for some of them it may seem as though things will never shake themselves out, right? I mean,
Mhm.
at this point, but to think that love is possible, respect is possible, friendship is actually possible. Yeah, Miranda was interesting to me because when you mentioned boyfriends, there's one scene in particular came to mind. I'm not going to get into it because people have to read it to see, but I think there it is. I mean, definitely, I think the reason why I guess I use that word trauma is because I think about how she lets things build up, it seems like, and then explode, explode, for sure. We're able to kind of see that for sure. But there those lighter moments that come out in the book too, and I think one of those is the idea of someone rooting for you. I found that interesting too because I think we all hopefully have someone in our corner that is rooting for us, that wants to see the best for us. You've experienced that in your career. Melissa, what has that been like for you to see the support you've had?
I think I'm very, grateful. I mean, especially, sometimes in my real life, as a mom, you don't really get to hang out with your writer friends that often. And recently, I was able to hang out with Gail Foreman, Lauren Oliver, Sarah Milanowski, and the four of us have been writers now and friends, for almost 20 years, but we don't see each other that often. So it was just so fun to catch up. We all do, we all have the same job, so it's interesting to talk to women and authors and, just like the frustrations of the job but also just how much fun it is. And, you just all come from the same understanding. So of the, of the industry and readers and book tours and what are we doing now, so now it's like we have to learn how to make reels, so it's like we're trying to change with the times. But yeah, it's just really nice to have that community and the community of readers, especially my readers who've been following me since Blue Bloods, and then their kids are reading Descendants, and I'm kind of scared to find out how old their kids are now. It's like, how old am I?
Right. Chris has a great comment here, Melissa. He's joining us over on Facebook. He's a recording artist as well as a visual artist. He says how the stars kind of align with the way the veil is being torn away, exposing the ugly side of Hollywood. I've noticed through the years how the views are so juxtaposed, either deifying these celebrities or seeing them almost as villains because they feel no connection or common thread with themselves. Thank you for playing the middle, giving them a fair shake, and showing their human side that they are not always able to showcase under the spotlight. Thank you for that thoughtful comment, Chris. And that is, again, what this book is about. That's a great thing about this book, Melissa. Even though it is a novel, it does remind us of something that we don't always remember. And that is these people are people. What is that kind of part of what you hope people remember?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially as a consumer of tabloid culture, you start to wonder, like, why are they, hounding these people? They're, oh, they're famous. And so because they're famous, they owe it to the public, but I think now we see people like Chapel Rowan, for example, saying like, no, my whole life is not for you. I have some of my life that's for me. Just because I'm a famous singer doesn't mean you get me. You're allowed to, consume me, as a product. And
Right.
I think that, yeah, you have to remember that they are people, I mean, it's kind of this fascinating thing where it's like, do you want to be famous? Because like it comes with all that criticism, that exposure, and it's so, it's been told to us that, oh my God, everybody should do anything to be famous. To be famous is going to be the best thing in the world. But I think there's a lot to be said about being a private person, although now, especially with social media, we're all in a way become our own celebrities, especially in the age of reels. Like we actually have to be influencers, which is fascinating. One of the things my author friends and I were talking about, like, oh my God, how much of our life do we put on, and I have to say that everything is out there telling a story and trying to sell you something. So don't believe everything that we put out, right?
Yeah, that is true. But we do want you guys to believe that this book is good because it really is. I'm not just saying that either because Melissa's been a regular guest with us. Derek, hello to you over there on IG. Again, everyone, New York Times bestselling author Melissa De La Cruz has been back with us. When Stars Align is her newest book. And it, as I mentioned, great for all ages. The guys and the ladies will both enjoy this book. It's a great look at not only celebrity culture, but also life after events of our past, whether it's celebrity or anything that may have happened to us moving forward. I think there's so many great layers here. Melissa, really appreciate this time. How can our audience stay connected with you?
I'm at Instagram, author Melissa De La Cruz, and I'm online, melissa-delacruz.com.
Love it. Melissa, congratulations again to you. Really appreciate this. Looking forward to our next chat together.
I am too. Thanks, Cyrus. Thanks for having me.
Glad to do it. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Yay.